People told me to just follow the rules, at work, with IT, and even at a coffee shop. So I did exactly that, without breaking a single rule. By the end, IT was begging, my boss stayed late, and a barista learned a very quiet lesson in malicious compliance. Recently, my wife pulled off such a satisfying act of malicious compliance that I decided to combine it with another one she pulled about 6 months ago. My wife works in the finance department of a government contractor. They have a hybrid setup, but most people work from home. Office space is limited. Her team is expected to come into the office on Mondays and Tuesdays. Every month, her job has a brutal end-of-month crunch. The whole team rushes to close numbers. She often has to stay late at night, or work a few hours on weekends, just to make everything balance. This part matters later, because traffic in our city is pure hell. She prefers starting work at 7 a.m. and finishing at 3 p.m. That way, her commute is 30 minutes, instead of an hour, or more, each way, just sitting in traffic, wasting her life. About 6 months ago, corporate geniuses introduced new rules. Strict office hours, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on office days. At the same time, they increased the number of required office days. My wife emailed them. She explained that spending an extra 4 to 5 pointless hours a week in traffic takes away her flexibility in the evenings and on weekends. Management's response? Be a team player. Blah, blah, corporate nonsense. So my wife sent them a detailed breakdown. Her paid 40 hours per week. She explained how the flexible schedule, introduced during COVID, benefited the entire team. But if that flexibility gets cut, then obviously, her ability to adjust disappears too. Management didn't care. They insisted on the new rules. So she left the office exactly at the end of the strict hours, got stuck in traffic, and of course, missed the daily evening team's call. Management didn't like that at all, but she had their emails, their written demands. She doesn't control traffic, and they refused to move the meeting. So she told them, if you want me on that call, either give me my old schedule back, or approve overtime, so I can stay in the office and join from there. Result? They let her return to the old schedule, for the sake of team unity. Amazing. Now fast forward to recently. Management decided that all overtime must now be approved by the direct supervisor. Last week, my wife started leaving meetings exactly on time. She would say, sorry, I have a hard stop. Overtime wasn't approved. Click. She leaves the call. Other employees caught on fast. One colleague now also stops working right on the dot. Her overtime wasn't approved either. Upper management was confused. Monthly reports weren't finished. Deadlines were slipping. So they asked what was going on. The team replied by pointing to the new policy. All overtime must be approved by a direct manager. It wasn't approved in advance. So work stopped. To avoid violating company rules. My wife says nobody has responded yet. And it's been weeks. Oh, and let's not forget, they still haven't filled a position in the department. That's been open for 5 months. So yes, they're effectively working short-staffed. Now I sit back, listen to her work stories with pure joy, and think, reading that subreddit all these years really paid off. 30 minutes of work. 3 plus 3 plus 15 equals a maximum of 30 minutes of work. A few years ago, one of my company's clients decided to open a new office in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I was sent there for 3 weeks to help set the place up. They also sent a guy named Dave from the Chicago office, from another department. I'd never worked with him before, and honestly, I didn't like him from the start. He was always at least 15 minutes late, moved like a zombie, and during the first week, I caught him falling asleep at his desk, more than once. Still, he was the only person I had any interaction with there. So on Friday, I invited him out for drinks, on the company's tab. He said, I wish. I'm going home and sleeping until Monday. This drive is killing me. I was like, wait, what? Turns out Dave's boss was a complete nightmare. Instead of paying for a plane ticket, a hotel, and a rental car, like my boss did for me, Dave was told to drive his own car every time from Chicago. That's almost 3 hours one way. I said, dude, that's insane. You're spending 6 hours a day just driving. That's brutal. I added, at least the money must be good. You're clocking like 70 hours a week. I told him to submit gas and toll receipts fast. Reimbursements can take forever. That's when I saw it. The last spark in Dave's eyes went out. Dave said, they don't reimburse any of it. Gas? No. Tolls? No. Time? No. I immediately called my boss. He was just as shocked as I was. In our department, Dave would have been paid for travel time and every expense. We both thought that was a company-wide rule, not something departments could just ignore. Unfortunately, neither of us could do anything about it, and we didn't know labor laws in Illinois or Indiana well enough. All we could do was tell Dave to keep his receipts for taxes and complain to HR. Monday comes. Dave is late again. An hour passes. Now I'm worried. I call his phone. Dave answers, cheerful as ever. Just past Portage. Traffic's moving fast. I'll be there in about 2 hours. He sounded way too happy, so I figured maybe they made him stop by the office first. I said, all right, see you. He arrived a little after 11, and the very first thing he did, he took a 15-minute break. Honestly, after that drive, I didn't blame him. 30 minutes of work continued. There was still almost a full workday ahead. After his break, Dave finally got to work. He turned on his computer. He barely logged in when he stood up again and announced he was going to lunch. Okay, sure. At that point, I knew he was up to something. I just had no idea what. After lunch, Dave finally started working. He spent about 20 minutes reading emails. Then he came over to me. He said, I'm going to take my second 15-minute break now. Then I'm heading home. I said, what? Dave grinned smugly. Don't worry. I talked to HR over the weekend. Tuesday came. Dave didn't show up. He didn't answer calls. Neither I nor my boss could figure out where he was. Honestly, we didn't try very hard. It wasn't our problem. Wednesday was the same. All right, maybe the guy's sick. Then Thursday morning, I finally saw him. Before work, at the hotel breakfast. I said, Dave, I was getting worried. You missed work 2 days in a row. Dave smirked. After loading our plates with terrible scrambled eggs and burnt sausages, he told me the whole story. On Monday, the client noticed Dave was showing up late, doing nothing, and leaving early. So the client called our company and complained. Dave was immediately called into a disciplinary meeting with his boss and local HR. They were ready to fire him. Why? Because he logged 32 hours of unjustified overtime the previous week and apparently didn't work at all the day before. Dave said they were dead serious. Security even walked in with a box of his personal items from his desk. But Dave had a trump card. Actually, 3 of them. First, an email from his boss ordering him to commute to Fort Wayne every day on his own dime as a temporary relocation. Second, an email from corporate HR stating that while he wasn't required to work overtime, he was required to log all overtime worked, including travel to and from the client. Third, a page from his department's internal employee handbook, clearly listing paid breaks outside the office. After that, Dave told them, I won't work overtime anymore. After 3 hours of driving one way, an hour and a half of paid breaks, and 3 hours driving back, I've got about 30 minutes a day left for actual work, even less with traffic. Oh, and then he added one more thing. Corporate HR fully supports me. I just spoke to them before this meeting. Dave said it took management About 3 seconds to realize they were completely screwed. And just like that, Dave was back on the project. Oh, and by the way, because the company had to book everything last minute, Dave was now staying in a luxury suite with a jacuzzi. And his rental car? A freaking Cadillac. Put the couch down. A difficult customer demands that her heavy couch be placed directly on fragile wooden flooring. Alright, as you wish. Back when I worked in a warehouse, the customer service manager, still a close friend of mine, would sometimes ask me and a couple other warehouse guys to help with redeliveries, usually for repaired or reordered couches. On one redelivery day, the customer service manager, let's call him CSM, pulled me aside. He warned me the client was extremely difficult and aggressive. This time, she ordered a high-end leather couch, paid a fortune, waited 22 weeks. Then, at delivery, she said she didn't like the color. Normally, the company doesn't do reorders just because someone changed their mind. But this woman caused such a scene and complained so much that the CEO personally approved an exception. So we arrived at her place. The driver was already unloading the couch. She chose a massive 3-seat sleeper sofa with a metal frame and base. Normally, metal frames come with special plastic guards for the legs and for every exposed metal edge to protect the floor. We carefully carried the couch into the living room. That's when she started screaming, calling us dirty, idiots, lazy, too slow. While we were unpacking, she kept getting louder, more aggressive, constantly harassing the CSM. How long is this going to take? The CSM calmly replied that we were working carefully to make sure the couch was perfect. Then we noticed it, light-colored hardwood flooring. I immediately started putting protective pads on the couch legs. She lost it. Why is he touching my couch? Is he trying to break it? I said, no, I'm just. She cut me off. Don't talk to me. Get your dirty hands off my couch. I said, it'll only take a few seconds. She screamed, put my couch on the floor, right now, or I'm calling your manager. I looked at the CSM. He just shrugged. So we did exactly what she asked. We placed the couch directly on the floor, and immediately we heard it, that horrible scraping sound. The CSM handed her the paperwork. She signed that the delivery was successful, that the couch was assembled correctly and placed exactly where she wanted it. She smiled smugly, then flopped down onto the couch. Crunch! The metal frame dug straight into her hardwood floor. We packed up the wrapping and left. Back at the store, guess what was waiting for us? A complaint. She claimed we damaged her very expensive wooden floor. The CSM showed the paperwork, her signature, confirming the couch was installed exactly as she demanded. She got exactly what she asked for. The burger with everything. Bring me a burger with everything. My first job was as a waitress at a 1950s-style American diner. I was about 16. Honestly, great job. Co-workers were mostly nice. Customers, hit or miss. There was one homeless guy who came in all the time, every single week. He completed our food challenge just to get a free meal. The burger with everything continued. He was actually pretty cool. All right, let's get to the story. One day, a family walked in. Classic setup. Dad, Mom, 2 kids. Every table was full. The bar was packed. I walked over to take their order. The dad says, burger. I ask, what would you like on your burger? He says, everything. I say, we have a lot of options. I pointed to the toppings section on the menu. He skimmed it, way too fast to actually read anything. Then he looked at me again and said, everything. Here's the thing. We really did have a massive list of toppings. Even today, that diner's website lists things like mustard, onions, coleslaw, chili, mayo, ketchup, lettuce, tomatoes, pickles, fried jalapenos, fried mushrooms, fried onions, grilled bell peppers. Back when I worked there, the list was even longer, plus 4 or 5 kinds of cheese. I asked him multiple times if he was sure. I even tried listing toppings out loud. His wife tried to explain too. You could tell he was getting annoyed, but it was obvious. He had no idea what everything actually meant. So I took his words literally and moved on. I asked, cheese? He snapped. I said everything. I said, we have 4 kinds. At that point, he was basically yelling. I'm not exaggerating. Those exclamation points were earned. I finished the order. I remember carefully writing every single ingredient on the receipt. The receipts were tiny. Each topping had an abbreviation. Fitting everything was a nightmare. I also added every single cheese option. I knew exactly what would happen. I knew this monster burger was going straight back to the kitchen. I knew it would look absolutely disgusting, but I was determined to give this man exactly what he asked for. The cooks looked at me like, are you serious? I just nodded. Green light. I brought the burger out with the smuggest smile I could manage. It was about 2 pounds of wet, slippery chaos. The look on his face? Priceless. As expected, he immediately called the manager and started complaining. The manager came over furious. Clearly, he'd just been chewed out. You know you're supposed to ask what customers want on their burger. I said, I did. The guy at table 11 says, he didn't order this. I need to remind you, I was 16 years old. Shy, quiet, but I pulled myself together and explained exactly what happened. The manager's face changed. A small smile appeared. He told me to come with him and grabbed a menu on the way. He said to the customer, Sir, I just need to clarify something. What exactly did you ask to have on your burger? The customer said, everything. The manager opened the menu and pointed to the toppings list. Sir, this is everything. And this is exactly what's on your burger. Then he added, I'll happily remake it however you want, if you're specific this time. But we're very busy, so it will take a while. He said my name and added, please take his new order. I did. I don't remember what he ordered, but it was a normal burger. It took about 10 minutes. By the time it arrived, his family was basically done eating, while he was just starting. We could have given him another burger already waiting in line. But why punish a polite table for his attitude? The student ultimatum. A student issued an ultimatum about a project and paid dearly for it. One of the modules I teach is a group programming project. Nothing insanely hard. The point is to build skills that actually matter if you plan to work in IT. And if you're studying computer science, that's usually the plan, right? So there's this one student, a walking disaster, with a crown on his head. He uses AI for almost all his assignments. It's painfully obvious. Whenever I leave written feedback, he argues, but sit him down and ask him to explain his own code? He sinks instantly. He doesn't understand half of what he submitted. For this project, he came to me and said, I can't work with others. I'll work alone. I explained that the module has mandatory group activities and grading criteria. I need to see his contribution to a team. I'm not allowed to exempt him from group work. He refused to budge, so I compromised. Fine, work alone. All students were assigned to groups. Every week, I checked their progress. This guy refused to interact with anyone. Formally, I'd honored his request, so he worked solo on his own version of the project. At every feedback checkpoint, I warned him, you need to join a group, otherwise you risk failing the module. I sent these warnings in writing and by email, with read receipts. I saved screenshots of everything. End of the module arrives. Time to submit. As expected, he submitted a project. Entirely his own. No group interaction. Multiple problems. The biggest one? His project didn't meet the assignment requirements. The code didn't do what it was supposed to do. Minus points. Because he didn't participate in group work, he earned 0 points. For the group component, because his code deviated so much from the specification, I called him in for a verbal code review. Asked him to explain what he wrote. He couldn't at all. More points deducted. Final grade? A big, fat fail. Now he has to retake the entire module. There is one downside for me. On the retake, he'll be back in my group again. I need this report earlier. I work in a research lab. Normally, we prepare the daily report around 2 p.m. That's when all tests are finished. We leave work at 3:30. My boss's boss, mostly an admin and manager type, works from 9 to 7 o'clock. And he decided he wants reports earlier. Somehow, he walks into the lab one day, holding a report and says, "I need you to submit this earlier. You always bring it when the day is almost over, and I can't change anything. I need to know what's happening in advance, so I can make adjustments. Bring it to me at 11 a.m. I tried to explain that the report is ready at 2 o'clock, because that's when all the data exists. If I do it earlier, it will be incomplete. He asked, what data would be missing? I pointed to 2 sections. He said, "Oh, those don't matter. We never change anything based on that." So I asked him to send an official email with this instruction for me and for the rest of the team, so no one forgets the new rule. He said he would. He went back to his office and he actually sent the email. I was stunned. I checked with my direct supervisor. She smiled. She knew exactly what was about to happen. For the entire month, we followed his instructions to the letter. We submitted the report at 11 a.m. every single day, and we simply left out those 2 unimportant metrics. Why? Because the tests weren't finished yet. The data physically did not exist. The entire lab was involved in this. And then, the end of the month arrived. My boss's boss sat down to type his monthly compliance report. And suddenly, he noticed something. A huge empty block. 2 full pages. He didn't understand what was wrong, but the clock said 3:30 p.m. We were already gone. Instead of spending 5 minutes printing and filing the documents, like he did every single month, he had to hunt down those 2 missing metrics himself. So the boss's boss had to stay late on the very last day of the month, just to finish his report. My direct manager ignored his calls for several hours, but around 7 p.m., she finally answered and calmly explained where he could find the data. Everything in the lab is labeled. He could have figured it out himself. In the end, he sat there until 8 p.m., manually typing the numbers into the report. 1 ticket per folder. Now for the next story. I work for a power electronics company. The company is about 40 years old. Around 10 years ago, it was bought by a massive American global conglomerate. Along with that purchase came their international IT support system. My role in this giant machine is simple. I fix hardware that customers break. Sometimes it's a unit that failed after 2 months. Sometimes it's a prehistoric relic that no one touched for 20 years and then ran non-stop until it died. One day, I had to repair one of those ancient units, and that forced me into a deathmatch with IT support. I needed technical specs, schematics, test documentation for an obsolete model, designed back when engineers used pencils and rulers. Nothing secret. So I talked to some veterans, guys who've been here Since the age of dinosaurs. They pointed me to an old archive, buried somewhere, inside terabytes of company data. The path looked like something insane. Something like, company product, test VCRM. Of course, I had no access. I submitted an IT request. A week later, I got a reply. After consulting the global IT director, they granted me access to company product test VCRM XR series. Great. Except, that wasn't the product on my desk. And worse, they only gave me access to the root folder, not the subfolders. So all I could see was a list of folders. Nothing else. I'd already lost a week. So I replied, as politely as humanly possible, "Thanks so much, but I need access to the full directory and all subdirectories for every product series." IT replied, "Unfortunately, you must submit a separate ticket for each file path, according to IT policy and data protection initiatives." All right, you asked for it. I made sure I understood correctly. Then I started mass-producing tickets, as fast as that terrible IT web portal could handle. Copy, paste, change folder path, submit. First, every subfolder in XR series, about 12 of them. Then, assuming the structure was the same, I started requesting access to every other product series and every folder inside them. Naturally, I turned off Outlook. Each ticket generated 2 emails, and honestly, I found it hilarious that they couldn't contact me. Eventually, my manager came over and said, "All right, that's enough. Stop teasing IT." Turns out IT had called him. Apparently, that many open tickets were destroying their KPIs and metrics. Suddenly, a miracle. They admitted the IT employee had been wrong. Turns out, I only needed 1 ticket. Amazing. It took about 1 hour of mindless ticket spam to push IT to the point of surrender. You can't order that drink. Last story. I'm from the UK. A few days after Christmas last year, I went to a well-known coffee chain with some friends. I won't name it, but let's just say, it sounds like cost a lot. From the moment the barista started serving me, I knew this would be an experience. The guy was arrogant, dismissive, acted like royalty among peasants. Long bangs, constantly flicking them away from his eyes, like a dramatic anime villain. Only 1 employee on shift, which meant, whatever we ordered, he had to make himself. Important detail, it was early January, but the cafe still had big posters advertising Christmas seasonal drinks. I love unusual coffee flavors, and one drink caught my eye. Black Forest hot chocolate, dark chocolate, cherry, cream. I ordered it. The barista looked at me like I'd personally insulted him. "That's a Christmas drink." I said, "Yes, Christmas already passed." He smirked. "So I can't make you a Christmas drink." I said, "But you're advertising it, and you have all the ingredients." Black Forest is literally hot chocolate plus syrup plus whipped cream. No harder than normal hot chocolate. He rolled his eyes. "It's unavailable." I couldn't tell if he was lazy, power tripping, or following some weird rule. So I tested him. I said, "All right, can I order a single shot of syrup?" The menu said, "Syrup shots cost 35p. He shrugged. "No reason why not." I said, "Cherry syrup, please, in a medium takeaway cup." He clicked his tongue, poured syrup into the cup, and shoved it toward me. "Anything else?" He muttered, and this was my moment. I slid the cup back and said, "Please make me a medium hot chocolate. In this cup, stir it well, then add whipped cream on top." His face twisted. He realized it. I followed his rules exactly, and still got my Black Forest hot chocolate. I stood there, watching him make it. with pure rage and suffering on his face, like every second hurt him physically. For the record, it was delicious. Thanks for watching. Drop your own malicious compliance stories in the comments. And don't forget to check out our other videos. Much love. See you tomorrow. Bye.